going on, beautiful people? The madness continues. Day 2 of the tampering period. We will cover everything that has happened today. We'll clean up some of the things that happened yesterday after we got off the air. So we'll tie up some loose ends from yesterday's day 1 tampering period. Kind of bring everything into focus today. Talk about the ramifications of all the moves, and then talk about what's still out there. There's still a lot of things that haven't transpired yet in this free agency period. The first 2 days of the 2 days of the tampering window. Tomorrow is the actual start of the new league year. So lots to get to. Don't want to delay. Let's get straight to the proceedings this evening. You're locked in to the LouieTeeNetwork podcast that starts now. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 404th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Whew. Lots to get to today. We still got some items to clean up from yesterday. So we're gonna jump right into some of those things. Talk about that big trade yesterday involving the Giants and the Carolina Panthers. We didn't get to that because it happened right as we got off the air yesterday. So I want to kind of clean up some things from that trade. Talk about some of the other moves that took place yesterday, and then we're going to dive into all of the things that have taken place today. So, excuse me. I want to start with the trade from yesterday. Yesterday, the Carolina Panthers traded away their former star edge rusher, Brian Burns, to the New York Giants for a 2nd and 5th round selection in the upcoming draft. Now, they were heavily scrutinized for this move. I get it. My whole thought process with Carolina, and it seems like, and this is what happens when you have bad ownership, and we've talked about this, and Panthers fans were in denial last year, and you know, people like myself who kind of called out their owner, they came back and backlashed, you know, at us for calling out their owner, talking about how he was this and that, and they were trying to make excuses. Again, as a fan of a team that had ownership that looked like theirs, they're going through everything that we went through. They're going through all of the stages that we went through. Ultimately, they will they'll realize what's going on here. But by then, it'll be too late. As a wise man once said, if you're reading this, it's too late. They had a chance to get 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns 2 trade deadlines ago. The Rams were desperate. We know the Rams don't give a shit about first-round picks. They could have given them the 2. They could have gotten the 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns, forked over the edge rusher if they knew they were. And again, they didn't know they weren't going to be able to reach a deal with him. But again, sometimes you got to strike while the iron's hot. He's a good football player, and his stock was probably the highest it was going to be that year, because I think that was the year that he had 12.5 sacks. So they probably thought they had a guy. They had their guy, right? Their Myles Garrett, their Nick Bosa, their, you know, TJ Watt. They thought they had their guy. You don't trade that guy, right? You fast forward 2 years though, and things haven't materialized the way that you thought. Clearly, he's not TJ Watt. He's not Nick Bosa. He's not Myles Garrett. He's not Aaron Donald. He's not posting those types of numbers. He hasn't exceeded the 12.5 sacks he had 2 years ago. He hasn't even had double-digit sacks again since then. And he wants $30 million a year, essentially. The numbers aren't making sense. The math ain't mathing. But what you can't do is just take anything for Brian Burns at this point. And that's what happened. They held on to him too long, to the point where they were reduced to getting next to nothing for him. And again, they didn't know they weren't going to be able to reach a deal with him. But when they saw the writing on the wall last offseason, this was becoming an issue and it was becoming a problem, and you didn't know if you could get it done. If you didn't think you could get it done, you should have moved him at the trade deadline when teams are more desperate and they're going for it. That's when you're more likely to land a first or a second round or a couple of first round picks. That's when you catch teams at their most desperate. Teams aren't thinking straight when there's a Lombardi being dangled in front of their face like a carrot. That's when you can fleece someone. Strike while the iron's hot. That's how you almost got 2 first rounders for him a couple trade deadlines ago. You turned it down, and now you end up getting a second and a fifth. They gave away DJ Moore. They gave away Brian Burns. They're losing talent. I don't know what happened with Jeremy Chin. He's not going to be back, obviously. They lost Frankie Louie. I don't really know what they're doing out there. I don't even know if they know what they're doing out there. They just paid $150 million to 2 interior offensive linemen total when the market suggests that guys aren't getting but $8 to $12 million per year. And you go out and you give Robert Hunt 5 years, $100 million. And then you turn around and you give Damian Lewis 4 years, $54 million. I don't know what the Panthers are doing. I know they want to protect Bryce Young, but they're going about it all the wrong way. And so it is what it is. Panthers fans will probably tell me I'm tripping again. I don't know what I'm talking about. Those guys that aren't there anymore weren't any good. Maybe that's the case. Didn't fit their system. I know Jeremy Chin kind of fell out of phase there with Ajiro Evero. Didn't fit in his scheme. Fine. I get it. But Frankie Louie was a integral piece of what you were doing defensively. How you let that guy out of your building, beyond me, right? I don't know what the Panthers are doing. And on the other side of that, for the Giants, the compensation, that's nothing. You'll do that all day long for a guy that could turn into a 14, 15 sack a year guy. And he's going into the prime of his career. Brian Burns is 25 years old. So that's nothing, right? The question with the Giants is, was that a gross overpay? 5 years, $150 million. I think it's more like 140. Then with escalators and, bonuses and things of that nature, he could get up to $150. But essentially, it's up pretty much 30 a year. That's what it amounts to, if he gets to all of the incentives that could be in that deal. It's a lot of money for a guy. And again, I think he's super talented. I'm not debating that. It's a lot of money for a guy who hasn't proven yet that he is that elite pass rusher. That kind of money is reserved for the guy that's coming off of his second straight 14.5+ sack season. That kind of money is reserved for the guy that's going into year 5 of his career, and 3 out of the 4 years previous, he had double-digit sacks. That's not what you just signed up for. Now, again, when you make these kinds of moves, you're not paying for what a guy has done. You're paying for what you think he's going to do. And so on that end of the spectrum, I get it. But you also are paying for what you're not going to give a guy that kind of money because you think he's going to do something, and he hasn't shown you that yet. And while you've seen flashes from Brian Burns, he hasn't posted those big, robust numbers. So that's a risky proposition on the part of the Giants, but we'll see how it works out. But they're putting together one hell of a defense in New York, and really what it all boils down to is what the hell are they going to do on offense? But that's a ballsy move by the Giants, and sort of a head-scratching one for the Carolina Panthers. And what I've heard in turn is that potentially what they'll do is they'll take the compensation they just got from the Giants and try to flip that and turn it into T. Higgins. Good luck. You're going to need it. So let's see. Let's get to the moves of today. And let's get to things that have transpired in the market. We'll clean up some of the items from yesterday. I think after we got off the air, Jacoby Brissett signed a one-year deal with the Patriots, 1 year, $8 million. Jameis Winston signed today a one-year deal with the Cleveland Browns. So we're seeing the musical chairs at the backup quarterback position starting to settle in. Every team, and I told you that position in particular goes rather quickly because everyone's looking for their veteran backup quarterback, especially if you've got a young quarterback incoming or you think you've got a shot to win a Super Bowl. You need it is imperative that you have a quality backup quarterback if you think you got a chance to make a run at it, because there's going to be a time at some point next season, more likely than not, we're going to need that backup quarterback, whether it's just for 2 quarters of a game because your quarterback can't finish, or it's for 2 weeks because your quarterback is down. You're going to need that guy to come in, steady the ship. And so the Browns went out. We saw all the issues the Browns had last year. They rolled the dice. They went with young guys last year. P.J. Walker, who is a veteran, but he's not one that you can rely on if you're trying to win something of note. And they also had the rookie Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and that was a disaster. Luckily, Joe Flacco to the rescue, and he was able to help salvage that season for them. So they're a little bit smarter this year going about it by getting Jameis Winston into the fold. Sam Darnold signed a 1 year, $10 million deal with the Vikings. I think it's like $6 or $7 million. It can get up to 10 with incentives. So Sam Darnold now is a Minnesota Viking, and they lost Kirk Cousins yesterday. Obviously, Sam Darnold is not the answer, but just like I said yesterday, when it came to the Raiders and them going out and getting Gardner Minshew, when it came to the Steelers and them going out and getting Russell Wilson, it provides you with an alternative. Should things not go the way that you intended to go, you still have at least an option that you can trot out there to start. Now, it isn't ideal to start Sam Darnold. It isn't ideal to start Gardner Minshew. It isn't ideal. Well, it might be ideal to start Russell Wilson, but he's not the long-term answer in Pittsburgh. So I still think Pittsburgh is still in the mix. I still believe a team like Minnesota is going to be hunting after a quarterback this offseason, more specifically in the draft. And obviously, a team like the Raiders are still going to be in the mix for a quarterback come draft time. So the Vikings are simply doing what they need to do to put themselves in a position that should things not go the way that they want them to from a quarterback perspective, at least they have a guy that can start. But that's a pretty rough position to be in if you've got to turn to Sam Darnold week 1 of the 2024 NFL season. That'll be rough. But at least they have a guy now on board. Tyrod Taylor signed a 2-year deal with the New York Jets, similar to what I just said about getting Jameis Winston in Cleveland. If you have Super Bowl aspirations, which the Jets do, right, you have to have a backup quarterback. They found that out the hard way last year. They thought they had a guy. They had no intentions of him playing in Zach Wilson, but obviously 4 or 5 snaps into the season, he had to get in there, and it didn't go well for them. And so they're making sure that they're in a much better position this year with the backup situation with Tyrod Taylor. Now, the key with Tyrod is he's got to stay healthy when he does hear his name called. They got a couple of oldie but goodies out there at quarterback, and boom, boom, just like that, they could be on their 3rd string quarterback. So it is imperative that the Jets prepare themselves for all kinds of scenarios because Tyrod generally does not stay healthy. But good for Tyrod, just walking across the street, heading over from the Giants to the Jets and keeping that NFL career alive and keeping those checks coming in. I love to see it. Drew Lock, speaking of walking across the street to the other side, he is now a member of the New York Giants. So he signed a 1 year, $5 million deal, and he will back up presumably Daniel Jones. But again, much like I've talked about with some of these other teams, look out for the Giants as a potential landing destination for one of these young quarterbacks in the draft at some point as well. So You move on to the running back position, and this was one of the last big dominoes we were waiting to see fall. And I talked about Derrick Henry yesterday. I said I wanted to see if Derrick Henry was going to go to Baltimore. That's where it felt like always he was going to go. Remember, the Ravens tried to trade for him at the trade deadline. The deal was like literally 95% complete. And then the Titans got cold feet at the last minute and said, no, we're not trading one of the best players in our franchise's history at the trade deadline. That's not how his Tennessee Titans career ends. And so they held on to him and waited until the end of the season. And you know what? I can respect that. I really do respect that stance. And they came back around, and he left this offseason, was going to be a free agent. And we said it was two teams. It was Dallas and it was the Baltimore Ravens. And it always felt like the Ravens. And that's exactly what happened. Signs a 2-year, $16 million deal. It could get up to 20 with incentives. And so good for Derrick Henry, man. He's going to have a shot to win a Super Bowl. And I still think he's got some mileage left, and he's got some gas left in that tank. And that's the perfect place for him to go. He's going to see some of the biggest holes he's ever seen in his career playing alongside Lamar Jackson. That's going to be fun to watch. Let's see. Oh, a wise man once told me revenge is a dish best served cold, and Aaron Jones just did some cold-blooded shit when he signed a 1-year, $7 million deal with the Minnesota Vikings. So essentially how this situation played itself out was the Packers screwed Aaron Jones, right? Clearly, they wanted him to renegotiate his contract. However, they asked this man to take more than a 50% pay cut. Like, essentially, you want me to play, I'm not saying for free, but you want me to play for a fraction of what I'm worth. What are we doing right now? It sounds like you want me to leave. If you want me to leave, just say so. Let me go while the money is still out there and I can land on my feet. They held on to this man past the tampering window when everybody else went out here, and the running backs were the first position to be rummaged through, right? I mean, that thing had been run up and down through, back, forth, side to side. And by the time he got to the market, all the running back dollars were dried up essentially. And so they pretty much put him in a really tough spot, damn near untenable. But he still had an ace in his back pocket. And he said, you know what? The Vikings moved on from Alexander Madison. Dalvin Cook's no longer there. They don't have a back. You know how I can hurt the Packers the most? Stay in the division. Go to a team that has a chance to do some damage. Even if the Vikings aren't going to be good right now, they don't have a quarterback. But even if they're not going to be good, I can find a way to screw you twice a year. So he's going to have his shot to get back. That you're not telling me anything. He could have waited. He could have went to Houston. I said he was from Texas. He could have went to Houston with the Texans. They hadn't made the move ultimately that they made to go get Joe Mixon yet. He could have went down south. He could have went back home. He's like, nah, F that. I want to get at these boys. We'll see what happens. That's going to make for some good theater. That's going to be a storyline. And we'll probably see those two teams on some sort of primetime platform. And that's going to be one of the storylines. Hopefully he's healthy when that game takes place, because that'll be one of those sidebar conversations about how he wants to get at the Green Bay Packers for how they just treated him. Austin Eckler signed a 2-year, $8 million deal, essentially, with incentives that can get up to $8 million. This was a deal, I think it was 2 years, $11 million, excuse me. But it's like base 8 million, can get to 11 with incentives. It's a great destination for Austin Eckler. But you know what's funny is I was reminded by my guy Craig, shout out to my guy Craig if he's out there, about how this situation comes full circle. I was one of the biggest Austin Eckler haters in the game. Like, you couldn't find a more hateful, low down, dirty, dick dastardly distributor of Austin Eckler hate than yours truly, right? And I can't explain why I had disdain for this man. I just felt like he was garbage And, you know, the Chargers could do so much better than Austin Eckler. That was always my line. Like, I would say some of the most disrespectful stuff, but it wouldn't be in a really disrespectful manner. It would just be offhanded comments. Like, I mean, your running back is Austin Eckler, like shit like that, right? Where you just like, bro, that's really disrespectful. And it backfired on me because he ended up actually being a really good back. And so I had to eat my words, and I had to offer up a double O to Austin Eckler. And it's just very fitting that he would end up playing for my favorite team, because I was very out of pocket when it came to Austin Eckler like 4 years ago. Treated him like a redheaded stepchild. Anyway, welcome to the Commanders, Austin Eckler, and I look forward to seeing him score many, many touchdowns for the Burgundy and Gold. I think we talked about Devin Singletary ending up with the Giants on that 3-year, $16.5 million deal. I think we talked about that yesterday. So Zach Moss signed a 2-year, $8 million deal with the Bengals. So that's what allowed them. So they did the same thing, did the Bengals, to Joe Mixon that the Packers did to Aaron Jones. The only difference was they traded Joe Mixon, so it lessened the blow, right? It softened the blow a bit. But they knew they were moving on from Joe Mixon this offseason. They had him take a pay cut last year, so everybody, including Joe Mixon, knew that was the swan song last year. That was it. So if you knew you're cutting me, why don't you just let me go? Why would you do me like that? I mean, we've been boys since day one, man. A1s since day one. And this is how you do me? You don't let me go out here when the money is still there and find a destination. Luckily enough for him, there was still a seat available in this game of musical chairs with the running backs. Nobody had went to Houston with the Texans. They needed a guy. And so Cincinnati shipped him off. They said, we're not going to give you the option to do what Aaron Jones did to us and end up back in the division. Nah, we're going to ship your ass off to Houston, which could end up being an even bigger mistake because those boys are on the rise. So anyway, that was a trade that I didn't talk about, but might as well since we're here. Joe Mixon traded to the Houston Texans. So now the Texans have a replacement for Motor Singletary, who moved on to the Giants. Remember, I told you yesterday, and I think I told you this last week before the tampering period started. I said, it's only going to be a game of musical chairs. You're just reshuffling the deck. Okay. That guy goes there. That guy goes there. Because there's now a vacancy here, because that running back left to go there, somebody has to fill that void. That's all we saw at the running back position. Okay. And really the only team left without a chair, a running back, essentially, is the Dallas Cowboys. They're the only ones, right? Baltimore let their guys go. Gus Edwards is now in LA with the Chargers. They replaced him with Derrick Henry, right? Titans let Derrick Henry go. He's now in Baltimore. They took Dallas's running back, Tony Pollard, right? So everybody went and got a guy except for Dallas. They're one of 5 teams of the Cowboys who haven't signed an outside free agent this entire period. Speaking of free agents, Nyheim Hines signs a 1-year, $3.5 million deal with the Browns. Good for him. And let's move on to wide receiver. We saw some wide receiver work today. You know, receivers were very quiet yesterday. Not a lot of noise going on there. Calvin Ridley hasn't signed anywhere yet. Reportedly the Patriots are sniffing around Calvin Ridley, but he wants to stay in Jacksonville. We'll see if the Jaguars want him. You can want Jacksonville, but they may not want you because they got busy yesterday at Jacksonville. So I don't know if Jacksonville is in his future again, but I know that's where he would like to go. But Darnell Mooney, who I was intrigued by this offseason, because I know that kid can play. And because the situation in Chicago wasn't all that ideal, his numbers suffered and his game didn't take that next step that we saw after his rookie season. And so him going to Minnesota, him going to Atlanta on a 3-year, $39 million deal, that's a hell of a move, because you think about it. They got Kirk Cousins. You got Kyle Pitts. You got Drake London. Now you add Darnell Mooney. You have Bijan Robinson. That's a talented-ass offense. I already said it would have been even more fun to watch had Justin Fields gone there. But with Kirk Cousins pulling the strings, That's going to be a scary offense, straight up. And if they run it with Bijan and Kirk doesn't have to do anything but go play action fake and carve your damn heart out, man, I'm telling you, look out for the Atlanta Falcons this year. I love that deal, getting Darnell Mooney on a 3-year, $39 million deal. Speaking of Gabe Davis, I just mentioned him going to Jacksonville. He went on a 3-year, $39 million deal as Gabe Davis returns home. Remember, he went to college at UCF, Central Florida. So he returns back to where it all started, and he will be a member of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Devontae Parker just signed a 1-year, $4.7 million deal with the Philadelphia Eagles. So that Eagles roster continues to be bolstered by high-level talent. Parker, a former first-round pick, adds to a wide receiving core that is already one of the better ones in the league. So that is a hell of a signing for the Philadelphia Eagles. Noah Brown goes back to the Texans after having a breakout season this past year on a 1-year, $4 million deal. Good for him as he finally gets a little something in his pocket. And I think that was the last major move. Gunnar Olszewski re-signs with the Giants on a 1-year, $1.2 million deal. He had a big punt return, I believe, against the Rams last year, I think. Anyway. Gerald Everett signs a 2-year deal with the Bears, so he'll come in and try to help the tight end position. They've already got a big time tight end there, and he's going to come in and complement him. So Everett still got some good football left in him, so that's a good signing there. Mike Gesicki signs a 1-year, $3.25 million deal with the Cincinnati Bengals, and I think that was the last major tight end. We saw a lot of tight end work. Chiefs, this is an interesting one. I like this one. Chiefs sign Irv Smith Jr., 1-year, $1.3 million. That's a quiet, sneaky move if he can stay healthy. He could, remember, this is a former first-round pick. There's talent there for sure. And every time I think this is a great spot for him, like Cincinnati last year, this is a great spot for him. And there were flashes last year. It just, for whatever reason, it doesn't work out. That's a great spot for him, though. Man, that's a really good spot if he can stay healthy. We'll see what happens. Drew Sample re-signs with the Bengals on a 3-year, $10.5 million deal. I was very critical of the Drew Sample drafting. I think he was a 2nd-round pick. I was like, what the hell are you doing? That's too early for Drew Sample. It's actually worked out very nicely for the Cincinnati Bengals. The tackle market started to get heated up a little bit last night. Mike Onwenu re-signed with the Patriots on a 3-year, $57 million deal. So that happened after we got off the air yesterday. Jermaine Illuminor signed a 2-year, $14 million deal with the Giants. I think we talked about that yesterday. I'm not quite sure if we did or not, but it's a really good signing. Even if he's not starting, he's a solid swing tackle, but he's best at right tackle in a pinch. With the struggles that they had with Evan Neal at right tackle last year, he could step in and start at right tackle for you. You can do a hell of a lot worse than Jermaine Illuminor. So I think that's a really good deal for the Giants there. But the tackle market is still largely untouched, though, right? Like no Tyron Smith yet, David Bakhtiari, Jonah Williams, Mekhi Becton, that whole market, George Fant, Josh Nyman, Josh Jones, still a lot of guys out there at the tackle position. Let's see. I think the guard position has really been similar to the running back position. The guards have really gotten paid, and there's not much left here to see. We talked about the Robert Hunt deal already. I think Damian Lewis happened last night, 4 years, $53 million. I talked about that earlier. Like, what the hell are the Panthers doing? It's a lot of money, man. A lot of money. Like, John Runyon Jr. signed with the Giants yesterday, 3 years, $30 million. You're signing Damian Lewis for $53 million over 4 years? He's not that much better than John Runyon Jr. Like, what are we doing here, Carolina? Anyway, speaking of John Runyon Jr., 3 years, $30 million for the ex-Green Bay Packer. I really like that signing there. John Simpson is off the mark. He was one of the last solid guards still available. He signs a 2-year, $12 million deal to now become a member of the New York Jets. Nick Allegretti, late last night, signed a 3-year, $16 million deal with the Washington Commanders. So for the second year in a row, Washington goes and snatches up a former Kansas City Chiefs offensive lineman. I think that was one of the last guard news, but we had so much guard news yesterday. It was ridiculous. The guards were flying in free agency yesterday. I think we talked about Lloyd Cushenberry signing that 4-year, $50 million deal with the Titans. If we didn't, I do want to add this one side note. He signed the most for a center in terms of guaranteed money in NFL history. And look, you're going to hear that a lot now. With the cap continuing to rise, you're going to see more and more money. So, of course, it's going to start being the most in NFL history. But it was $26 million, I believe, fully guaranteed. Good for Lloyd Cushenberry. I think we talked about most of these other guys. I don't think we might have talked about Aaron Brewer signing a 3-year, $21 million deal. That's the reason why Lloyd Cushenberry was a necessity in Tennessee, because Aaron Brewer was the center in Tennessee last year. He's now with the Miami Dolphins, so they had to do something. Edge rusher, I talked about the Brian Burns deal, 5 years, $141 million, but it can get to $150. That's a big deal for the Giants. A lot of money. The first thing I reacted to that was, good Lord, that's a lot of money. But we're going to see if he lives up to the hype. We talked about most of these edge rushers yesterday. Josh Uche re-signs with the Patriots on a 1-year, $3 million deal. So that didn't come out until today. We got some numbers on the Marcus Davenport 1-year deal with the Lions. One year, $6.45 million. Similar deal to the one he signed last year with the Minnesota Vikings. So we'll see if he's able to stay healthy this year and kind of help his market as he tries to, reset it again next year. Cleveland Farrell signs a 1-year, $3.75 million deal with the Commanders. Sticking with that theme, the Commanders also have reached an agreement with former Dallas Cowboy edge rusher. What is his name? I am blanking. Can't think of his name. It'll come to me. So Washington signs their third Dallas Cowboy defender. And they've done a full remodel of the edge rusher position. So Dante Fowler Jr., thank you, Coach T. Brown and Nick P. Dante Fowler Jr. So Washington signs their third former Cowboy, which we knew was going to happen when Dan Quinn left, took Joe Witt Jr. with him. They were going to bring a couple of guys over from defense. And frankly, the guys that they've brought over with them, 2 on the defensive side, 1 on the offensive side, I have no issues with. The only guy that I'm pushing back against is Jordan Lewis, the nickel corner. I really don't want him on the roster. I don't want the former safety either. It looks like they're going in a different direction there. So I'm happy about that as well. I'm not really I'm really pleased with all of the moves that they've made to this point. Much like the interior of the offensive line, the interior of the defensive line has been getting paid as well, right? So it's a lot of money thrown around here. We talked about most of this yesterday. Leonard Williams, I don't know if we got to this. I don't know if this happened prior to or after we got off the air, but he re-signed with the Seahawks on a 3-year, $64.5 million deal, which makes a ton of sense. When you trade for a guy in season at the trade deadline, it's rare that you allow that player to walk unless that guy was such a disappointment for you that you don't want to spend the money. You've already spent the draft assets and capital. You don't want to also waste money as well. But when you give up the type of draft capital the Seahawks gave up, I think they gave up a second round pick and something else. You want to re-sign that guy, right? It's rare that you give that away and then don't re-sign that player. So I'm not shocked to see them find a way to get that deal done with Leonard Williams. I think we talked about Grover Stewart on a 3-year, $39 million deal to go back to Indianapolis. I really like Grover Stewart, man. He's a really good football player. Ashawn Robinson, 3 years, $21.5 million deal to sign on board with the Carolina Panthers as the Panthers continue to be relatively busy in free agency. Daquan Jones re-signs with the Bills on a 2-year, $16 million deal. He was really good. And when he got injured last year, they felt that. They felt his loss last year. I felt like that was a big loss for them. Shelby Harris is back with the Browns on a 1-year deal that happened today as well. And I think that's all of the news. So now we get to linebacker, and this was another one of those positions that really started to gain steam towards the latter portion of the day yesterday. And when we saw Frankie Louvu sign and Andrew Van Ginkel and Jordan Brooks and all of those guys. So we saw that market starting to take shape. And so we'll go through some of these moves that happened yesterday. But I'm pretty sure we went through a lot of these, but I want to go through them again because it gives greater context to the big signing of the day at the linebacker position. So Jordan Brooks, 3-year, $26.25 million deal to sign up with the Miami Dolphins. So that's a big move for him, moving from Seattle to the Dolphins. I guess, remember, the Dolphins released linebacker Jerome Baker. So this is their Jerome Baker replacement here in Jordan Brooks. Frankie Louvu signed a 3-year, $33 million deal with the Commanders, or $36 million, excuse me, $1 million deal with the Commanders. Kenneth Murray signed a 2-year, $18 million deal with the Tennessee Titans. Andrew Van Ginkel signed a 2-year, $36 million deal. He's more of an edge rusher. So when a lot of these guys that we're talking about, these are off the ball linebackers. Andrew Van Ginkel is literally an edge rusher that is in a linebacker body, essentially. So his deal doesn't look a lot like the rest of these deals. When you see 2 years, $36 million, you're thinking, whoa, wait a minute. This is a guy that gets after the quarterback. It can do a little bit of everything. So Azeez Al-Shire signed a 3-year, $34 million deal. Good for him. He had been fighting to try to get this long-term deal done, and he finally gets it with the Texans. I love it for him. He's a really good football player. Happy that he was able to get that done. Mack Wilson signs a 3-year, $12.75 million deal with the Arizona Cardinals. Jalen Reeves-Maybin, I think we talked about this already, core special teamer, signs a 2-year, $7.5 million deal with the Lions. And I think those are the extra deals. So now we can go back to the big news of the day, and that's Patrick Queen signing with the Steelers on a 3-year, $41 million deal. So, you know, what's funny is I remember talking about this maybe like 3 months ago. There was a quick little exchange on social media between Patrick Queen and a fan. And there was a fan that tweeted out what SportRack said Patrick Queen's projected deal was going to look like. And the projected deal was somewhere in the neighborhood of, you know, I think it was like $20 million a year, something like 3 years, $67 million. So you're talking about $23 million roughly, somewhere in that neighborhood, 22.5. And he poo-pooed that. He thumbs down that post, right? And it's ironic now, coming full circle, that he is signing a 3. And now this isn't money to scoff at. It's a 3-year, $41 million deal. Still $17 million per year. It's good money, but he thought he was getting way more than that. And when you look at it in the context of some of the other guys, Frankie Louvu signed a 3-year, $36 million deal. He didn't get that much more money than Frankie Louvu. Who would have thought that was going to be the case when this process got started? But again, I told you that the market was going to really kind of flatten out for certain positions and certain players. And linebacker, because there's such a dearth of linebackers available, this much like safety, you weren't going to see the money just free flowing at that position because there's a lot of supply. And while there is demand, the supply not only meets the demand, it exceeds it. Okay. So because there's an oversaturation in that market at linebacker, you can pick what flavor you want. And then you can also negotiate the price on that flavor. And Patrick Queen, while he's a really good linebacker, I got my doubts about Patrick Queen. I've already said this. He felt really Robin-ish to me. All right, like he wasn't a Batman. He wants to be paid like Batman, but he's really Robin. And I didn't think anybody was going to pay him to be Robin. And the Steelers are like, no, we'll pay you, but we're going to pay you like Robin. And so he got good money and he gets to stay in the division, but it's not what he thought he was going to get. I assure you of that. But I'm good on his part to say, you know what? Let me cut my losses, get what I can get before I mess around and get embarrassed out here and have to sign a 1-year deal because I done effed around and let all the money dry up. So good on his part to take the deal that was presented to him, but it's not what he thought he was going to get. That's for sure, right? So that was a bit of a surprise, probably to him, but not to someone like myself who had been watching how the market really had been developing at certain positions, and this was one of those positions this year. Now we move to cornerback, and I don't think a lot has really transpired here. This is another one of those positions that I don't think really has been really touched to this point. We talked about most of these deals. Kyshawn Nixon, I hadn't seen this one. Resigns with the Packers on a 3-year, $18 million deal. I really like Kyshawn Nixon. Not only is he a up-and-coming corner, he also offers you some special teams value. And if they change the rules, guys like Kyshawn Nixon are going to become even more valuable and dangerous as special teamers. So that's a good move to bring him back. Amik Robinson is another corner that I really like. I don't know why. I think I liked him coming out of college, out of La Tech. And because I liked him so much coming out of college, I always keep up with what Amik Robertson is doing. But 2-year, $9.25 million, I think he can play. I just do. He's just so undersized, but I think he had like 3-4 picks last year. I like Amik Robinson. Good for him finding a 2-year deal with a team that has Super Bowl aspirations. I think that's it. I don't think too many. Oh, Darius Williams. That's right. Signed a 3-year, $22.5 million deal to go back to the Rams. So he's going back to where it all really started for him. And the upward trajectory of his career really happened with the Rams the first time around, which is what netted him the deal with Jacksonville. Now he's going back to probably finish his career with the Rams. Good for Darius Williams getting this final big payday of his career. And I think Kenny Moore, if I'm not mistaken, just re-signed with the Colts on a 3-year, $30 million deal, the highest deal, I think, ever for a nickel. Again, you're going to see that a lot. I've always told you guys, nickels don't cost a lot of money. So if you wanted to get one in free agency, it's always the cheaper route to attack it in free agency and then, go get the boundary corner in the draft. There's so many nickels this year, though. I'd just rather just get one fresh out of the draft, right? So good for Kenny Moore. He's always been one of my favorite players in the league in the nickel. So we get to the safety position, and I think we talked about a lot of these already. We talked about Xavier McKinney yesterday, talked about Geno Stone yesterday. We talked about Kevin Byard yesterday, talked about Darnell Savage yesterday. Jeremy Chin signed a 1-year, $5.1 million deal with the Commanders. So that's a really good signing. It's a perfect fit. It's one of the guys that I projected Washington go after. And I said we weren't done shopping at the Carolina Panthers store. And this is where my psychology background kicks in, because I profile people. When they talk, I listen, and I whatever they spit out, I take in. And then I'm almost like a computer in that way, where I can compute and then I spit out data after I take in all of the information that they've given me. And I told you what the fits would be for Dan Quinn, Joe Witt coach defense. I told you 2 of the guys that would fit like hand in glove in terms of when you think about the things they described and what they're looking for, these are the players that fit that. This is the DNA profile of what they're looking for and what happened. They went out and got Frankie Louvu yesterday, and then they went and got Jeremy Chin today. And it's a good deal because Chin probably believes he's worthy of a big multi-year deal, but last year was his worst year of his career because he didn't play. He didn't fit in a Jiro Evero's defensive scheme, so he kind of got phased out. So the numbers don't suggest that he's worthy of that 3-year, $39 million deal that he's probably chasing after. So instead of taking a 3-year, $17 million deal, which, if he blows up in this scheme, which he probably will under Dan Quinn, if he's healthy, he's going to eat and eat good in this scheme. Then you want to be able to hit the market again next year and then get the proper 3-year deal that you're looking for. So it's a good deal for all parties involved, and we'll see what happens there. So Daniel Thomas re-signs with the Jaguars on a 2-year, $4 million deal. I don't think anything else happened there. And then we got some kicker news yesterday. Brandon McManus signed with the Commanders late last night on a 1-year, $3.6 million deal. I think that was Chase McLaughlin. I don't think we got to this one by the time we were on the show, with the Bucks on a 3-year, $12.3 million deal. And then Greg Zuerlein re-signs with the Jets on a 2-year, $8.4 million deal. So that kicker market is drying up very quickly. I talked about that yesterday. We got some punter news today too. Tommy Townsend signed a 2-year deal for $6 million with the Texans. So I think he was an all-pro last year for the Chiefs. He's now in Houston with the Texans. Rigoberto Sanchez re-signs with the Colts on a 3-year, $7.5 million deal. Cameron Johnston signs with the Steelers on a 3-year, $9 million deal. Braden Mann signs on a 2-year, $4.2 million deal with the Eagles. Jake Bailey re-signs with the Dolphins on a 2-year, $4.2 million deal. And Matt Hawk re-signs with the Bills on a 1-year deal. Hell, we got some long snapper news. Shit, let's get to that too. Let's not leave them out, right? Morgan Cox re-signs with the Titans on a 1-year, $1.37 million deal. JJ Jensen re-signs with the Panthers on a 1-year, $1.37 million deal. So that's the going rate right now, $1.37 million for the long snapper. Patrick Scales re-signed with the Bears on a 1-year, $1.37 million deal. James Winchester re-signs with the Chiefs on a 1-year, $1.37 million deal. So that's what they're handing out these days. 1-year, $1.37 million deal for the long snappers. The Commanders, they signed Tyler Ott to a 3-year deal. They got fancy. Oh, you fancy, huh? They signed him to a 3-year deal, but the reason that one was signed is because of the connection. I'll talk about that later on tonight when we have our Commanders show. Trent Sieg re-signs with the Cowboys on a 1-year, $1.2 million deal. Shit, the Cowboys even cutting corners on the long snapper. That's how broke those dudes are. They can't even pay the 1.37 like everybody else. They paying 1.2. Oh, cheap bastards. Rick Lovato re-signs with the Eagles on a 1-year deal. And Casey Kreider re-signs with the Giants on a 1-year, $1.37. Everybody else did 1.37. Cowboys, your old broke ass. So we are all up to speed for the most part on all of the transactions that have been made today. And we'll see if there's any other moves that have been made. I don't see anything. So we got some trade. We got some compensation. The Joe Mixon trade, the Texans are sending the Bengals a 7th-round pick. So literally, hey, we gonna cut him. They was like, no, don't cut him. We'll toss you a 7th-rounder, bro. Like, cool beans. Just in case somebody else might be desperate and interested. I don't feel like fighting over Joe Mixon. I just toss you this 7th-round pick. We call it even. So that's what they did there. So anyway, I digress. Let's get to the comment section and see what you guys have to say about all the moves that have been made. Keep in mind, if you're out there, quickly take this opportunity to hit the like button. Doesn't cost you a thing, but it does help this channel grow exponentially. We are over 500 viewers right now, but only 123 likes. We can do so much better. Hit that like button if you haven't already done so. Greatly appreciate you. Please and thank you. Pac-Man D3. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, chin to Washington, Lou. Adam straight cooking. You guys sound surprised. You guys sound surprised. Like, I didn't prep you for this. I told you Adam Peters was that dude. I said he was him when we got him. This is why we were so excited. So I'm not surprised that he's out here doing the things that he's doing. Everything that I told you he was going to do, he's doing. I said, this is going to be fast and furious. I said, we're going to be very active. No one signed more players than we have in free agency because we've got so many roster spots available. They took a bulldozer to this roster. Okay. They smashed this roster, tore it to shreds, and only the foundation was left. The foundational pieces were left. Everything else was gone. Chest left, face gone. So they had work to do. And anytime you're going through a rebuild, this is what it looks like. All right, this is what it looks like. And I told you, they're not going to spend big money. They're going to spread it out. They're going to spend a lot of money, though, but they're going to spread it out. And it's not going to be crazy money. And it's going to be, everything that's going to be done is going to be done purposefully, tactfully, efficiently. And that's what you've seen. So, yeah, Adam, he's cooking. But it's to be expected. Cruising 26. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Cruising writes, go Big Blue. Finally getting back to the trenches. I don't know if you're referring to Jermaine Illuminor or what, or you're talking about Brian Burns, but the aggressiveness of the Giants, I like it. I like it a lot. I don't know if it's going to work out for you. I don't know if it's going to backfire in your face, but the talent is definitely there. We'll see what happens, but I actually like what you're doing on defense right now. You're putting together one hell of a unit. We'll see who you got calling this defense this year and if they're any good, but you got some pieces, man. I'll tell you that much. Zo Life, No Life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, report says Louie turned down Panthers because of Quinn. Missing on Ben Johnson could be the history-altering move for this franchise. About time we got lucky. It ain't luck no more, man. This is the football gods blessing us and smiling down on us after years of shitting on us. Again, we keep saying that Ben Johnson would have been the selection here. We don't know that. We don't know that. But it felt like he was the front runner. But everything that I've seen, everything that I've heard suggested, and people tried to tell us even before they met with Ben Johnson, like, remember Schefter told us before they even met with Ben Johnson, like, bro, he's not like in the driver's seat like y'all think. Like, just letting y'all know, I didn't want to hear the shit though. None of us did. But Louie turned down the Panthers. Now, was it more money? With the way the Panthers are throwing away around money, I like to think that it was more money. I don't think it was, it had to be comparable money. It might not have been more than what Washington offered him, but it had to be comparable money. But the reason he came to Washington is because he's seen what Dan Quinn has done defensively. He's seen how guys have eaten in his scheme that have a similar skill set to him. And he's chomping at the bit to be utilized in that way. And so, yeah, again, the people that you have in your building matter. I can't stress that enough. How many times have you heard Zach Ertz say, I'm here because of Cliff? The guys that you have in your building matter. Dudes don't just show up because, now again, money matters, and I told you that, but I told you, I gave you the 5 reasons guys make their free agent decisions. These are the 5 reasons I've come up with. It's not like it's only 5 reasons. These are my 5 reasons. I think there are 5 humongous reasons. And on that list, number 4 was relationships. Or number 3, I think, was relationships. That matters. And it may not have been he played for Dan Quinn, but it's, hey, I want to play for that dude. So, Red Wing 01, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, I predicted Lock to the Giants last month. Decent pickup. What in the hell possessed you to make that prediction? Like, if you did that for real, that's almost some blindfold bullseye type shit. Like, what possessed you? Now, did they make a move? Was there a precursor there that led you to believe that this was the direction they were going to go in or something? Like, that's literally taking a shot, in the dark. That's a hell of a prediction if you predicted that a month ago. Unless there's some kind of quarterback coach or the offensive coordinator from, Seattle, or somebody that with ties to Drew Lock was there in New York. How in the hell could you have predicted that? That's crazy to me. Wow. That is a good pickup for them, though. After what he did to the Eagles last year, and I think he played against the Chiefs too, if I'm not mistaken, that following week, and actually didn't play that poorly. They didn't win the game, but he wasn't horrible. Like, he's a competent backup quarterback now, is Drew Lock, I think. Red Wing 01, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, I see people saying Mariota means we're leaning towards JD5, but I think that's looking a little deep into it. Like saying we want DM if we got Darnold. Yeah, so I don't know if you saw me tweet this out when that happened, but I tweeted out the Joker. Here we go, right? Because I knew that narrative was going to start firing on all cylinders. And I was like, go ahead, start it up, rev up the engine, get all the conspiracy theorists out front and center, and let them just have at it. Let them go to work, because they're going to have fun with this one, because everybody thinks they know what this means. And I'm going to talk about it later on tonight. I'm not going to get into the specifics of it right now, but I'll get into it on the Washington show later on tonight. But we're going to address that tonight. We're going to talk about it. What I'm going to say isn't going to dissuade anyone that believes that to be the case. If that's the narrative you're rolling with, what I'm going to say isn't going to change your mind, but just going to give you a different perspective and a different way to look at it. I'm with you, Red Wings. I think you're really diving in too deep. I think you're diving in way too deep. But anyway, I digress. Dennis Bartholomew, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Dennis writes, what up, Lou? What up, Dennis? Says, we know what Peters has done late in the draft, so what late round prospects do you have an eye on? Hashtag building a bully. I don't have any of that information for you right now. I'm locked in on free agency. I'm about to turn my attention to the next position. I'm going to probably let y'all pick the position. If not, I might just dive into the next position myself. But I can't tell you about the back end of the draft quite yet. But I'm going to leave that up to them. It may not be as much of a prospect I'm looking for as much as a position that I might be looking for when we get to that point and we get towards the end of the draft process into late, mid to late April, and we get closer to the 25th, which is day one of the 2024 NFL draft. I might have a player or two in mind, but the likelihood is I'll have a position. Like, I don't think we need to address this early, but if there's a guy here late at that position, I'd love for Adam to take a big hulking swing, right? I mean, just swing out of your damn shoes, bro. If you connect, we got ourselves a Dre Greenlaw. If you don't, and you swing and miss, nobody will even blink. Nobody will even blink. So, Barrett Downing, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, BD, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, man, Lou, I'm hyped about the free agents. I'm on vacation, but I ain't missing nothing. Respect. Man, if you don't enjoy your vacation, man, what you doing, BD? All of this stuff will be here when you get back. I'm saying that. Ain't that the pot calling the kettle black? Because I be on vacation and my wife gets on me all the time about this stuff, especially when things are going on. I generally don't go on vacation in the busy times of the year on the NFL calendar. Usually I try to go end of February, or mid to late February, nothing's going on. June into July, early July, nothing's going on, right? Like that's the dead period of the NFL calendar. I try to schedule my trips around those dates because that's usually when it's the quietest in the NFL circles. If I were to go on vacation this time of the year, I'd be checking my phone constantly. So I can't even talk about you, bro. But enjoy your vacation, man. What you doing? Monster, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Monster writes, "Sup, Lou? Sup, Monster? The Monster. Does Mariota move the needle for you in which way we go at quarterback at 2? Are we moving Howell? These are all things we'll talk about later on tonight. I'll just say this. Does Mariota move the needle in the way that I think about how they're going to attack the number 2 overall pick? No, it doesn't for me. But I'll get into the specifics of why I feel that way and what my rationale is behind all of that. And I'll talk about Sam Howell and what this means. We kind of already touched on a lot of this stuff already because I told y'all that we were getting a veteran quarterback. Like a lot of y'all were hell-bent on getting a veteran center. I was more hell-bent on us getting a backup quarterback. Like the quarterback is more important than the center because that's the guy he's going to spend more time with than anybody else is the guys in that quarterback room. So you need that veteran that can show the guy, how to be a professional, how to watch film, how to take care of your body, how to break things down, how to look for certain tendencies, little tricks of the trade that somebody else might have shown you along the way, right? So I don't think it changes anything, but we'll talk more about that later on tonight. Mark Mullinex, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Mark writes, "We just picked up Jeremy Chin." Yeah, I saw it, and I'm just as excited as all of you are. Again, I thought he'd be a perfect fit, and I'm not surprised at all. I would have probably been more disappointed had we not gotten Jeremy Chin because of how good of a fit he is here in Washington. So, the only thing that might actually suck is he might kill it this year and we might not be able to re-sign him next year. Hopefully he kills it this year and we're able to re-sign him next year. And it's not like, he's going to get a $100 million contract next year if he has this ridiculous season this year. He could get that 3-year, $42 million deal here in Washington next year. We'll have the money. We'll still be in a pretty good cap situation. So hopefully that's the case. Hopefully this guy's super young. So I'm hoping we're forging a great relationship with a young player for many years to come. That's the hope. John Perez, my guy, JP, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, "Adam Peters has been great with the signing so far, but I won't call this an A+ offseason until we draft either May or Daniels." Well, I'm going to tell you right now, you can go ahead and write it in pencil. Write that A+ with a pencil. Right? Don't write it in pen since you want to make sure. Like, yeah, that's the PTSD talking in you, right? Where you're a little nervous because in the past we might have done something crazy here, and so you're not quite sure. That's the old regime. That's the way things used to be done under Dan Snyder. The real adults are in the building now. You don't have to fear. All right. Adam Peters and company are here, right? There's no need to fear. Underdog is here. There's no need to fear. Adam Peters and Dan Quinn are here. We got adults in the building now, man. Josh Harris and company, Adam Peters, Lance Newmark and company, Dan Quinn, Joe Witt Jr. and company. We got adults in the building now. So I don't think you have to worry about that. But go ahead, put it in pencil, man. Don't write it in pen or marker. Put it in pencil. They're drafting a quarterback at 2, though. Red Wing 01. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, "I kid you not. I thought Locke would go to New York. I don't remember exactly my reasoning. Maybe someone else suggested it, but seeing how he improved, I thought it made sense for New York to take a flyer on him. But of all the teams, Red Wings, why the Giants? There are 31 other teams not named the Seattle Seahawks that could be looking for a backup quarterback. Why the Giants is my question. Like, what made you believe that of all the teams in the league, I think he's going to the Giants? That's the thing that's just fascinating to me. And I'm a why guy. You know that. So I'm like, okay, that's a crazy prediction, but why? What made you pick the Giants? Why not the Jets? They needed a backup quarterback. Why not Washington? They needed a backup quarterback. Why not the Vikings? The Vikings need a starter. Drew Lock is young, and maybe he could resurrect his career. Why not the Vikings? Right? Why not the Falcons? They still got Desmond Ridder and all those guys there, but like, there's so many other destinations. Why not the Browns? Right? The Giants, it's a hell of a pull, though. That is phenomenal. That's phenomenal work. Game Bomber 1 TV 2. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Dak Prescott got accused of sexual assault in the Cowboys radio station. Let the girl's lawyer come on the air. I didn't know about that part. I saw that Dak was suing. Either he was suing the girl for defamation, or he was filing filing charges against her for making false accusations, and he was trying to pursue that to the law, the limit of the law, right? So either he was countersuing her, or he was trying to, get them to charge her. Whatever the case may be, I saw something along those lines, and this was from like 2017 or something like that, right? This is from way back, and I think there was extortion. They were trying to, get him to pay money, and he's like, I didn't do anything, and so that's always a really dicey situation. You never want to find yourself involved in a mess like that. But at the end of the day, we'll see how that goes. But there's a lot of shit going on with the Cowboys, man. And none of it is good right now. None of it is any good. It's a lot of shit going on. Just another, storyline in that Dak Prescott, Dallas Cowboy saga that's going on right now, where they're kind of butting heads and kind of jockeying for position in that whole situation. And then you throw a little wrench in there with this whole ordeal. And, the radio station has no obligation to the Cowboys or Dak Prescott or Jerry Jones or any of that stuff. And again, I would assume that the radio station that did it, probably doesn't have an affiliation with the Cowboys. So that's not the radio station that Jerry Jones goes on, or Stephen Jones goes on and talks, during the course of the season. That's probably not a station that has a relationship with the team, where the players are coming on that station. Like, how 106.7 The Fan has a relationship with the team, with the Commanders. So their players go on their station and they talk to coaches every week on that station, things of that nature. You would never put somebody on the phone that has a lawsuit out against one of your players if you were in bed with the team, right? So I would assume that radio station isn't affiliated with the Dallas Cowboys in any way, shape, or form. So they're looking for numbers. They're looking for, people to tune in. This is the way you do it. So that would be my guess. I could be wrong. You say the Cowboys radio station. I find it hard to believe that radio station had anything to do with Dallas. If they do, that is mind-boggling. That is mind-boggling, because that is a conflict of interest. You would never, ever bite the hand that feeds you. Never. Unless, and this is some conspiracy theorist shit, right? Unless Jer is on a smear campaign against Daiquiri sweet like syrup. And this is his way of trying to gain favor amongst the fan base in case they do something crazy with Daiquiri, like not extend him. Just a thought. I don't think that's the case, but I don't know enough information to speak on that subject matter, so I'm gonna leave that alone. But anyway, that's crazy. That situation is a mess. Glad that we're done with that. Glad we are done with those days, right? Of all that messy shit. We've had our fair share of that bullshit here in Washington. We don't want any more of it. Keep that shit over there. Red Wing 01, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, all this, and we still got 5 top 100 picks. 6 if you count the pick that we have at 102 or 3. Yeah, life is good. But again, a lot of you sound surprised. I'm not surprised. This was all a part of the plan. Everything that's being done right now is happening according to plan. Just the way that I drew it up, just the way that they drew it up. This is the way it's supposed to look. This is rebuild, recalibrate 101. This is what it looks like. And the guys that they told us that they were looking for, with the kind of players that they described, they're going out and they're getting them. It all makes sense. And here's the thing that I love, which you just mentioned, and I talked about this yesterday. They're minimizing the amount of needs in the draft. So now you don't need a safety in the draft now, right? Don't need a safety. You don't need, like, you don't need an edge rusher. But guess what? If one's available and you like them, you take them. But you don't have to draft an edge rusher now. We'll talk about all those things later on tonight. Life, no life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, you see any player resign like Khalid or Revo? Those guys aren't coming back. Revo, outside shot. There's no chance in hell Khalid Hudson is back. More likely than not. I already told you, those don't get attached to any players that aren't core players on the team, because they're not coming back. When Adam Peters at his press conference, if you can think back to his initial introductory presser, when he was asked about the roster and he paused, and there was about a good 3 seconds of silence, and then he gave us that classic Adam Peters smirk, right? Showed us the pearlies, like, yeah, we got a lot of work to do. He said, yeah, there's some good players here, but we got a lot of work to do. He wasn't bullshitting. He was telling you it ain't a lot of shit here that's going to carry over from the previous regime. We're going to get to work on this roster. We're going to hack away at it. If you're a free agent, you probably ain't going to be back. That's how they've been operating. If you're a free agent, you're probably not going to be back. Name one free agent that Washington had that they brought back. Name one. You can't, because they haven't. Now they've brought back guys on futures contracts that were on the practice squad last year, and they signed them up to give them a shot this upcoming season, at least an invite to camp. But they've cut guys. If you were a free agent, they haven't brought you back. They're not looking to bring those guys back. Don't look for all-pro Revo. Don't look for, Khalid Hudson. Don't look for any of those dudes. They had a chance to tender some of these guys. They were restricted free agents. They tendered none of them. Don't look for none of these dudes to be back, because they're not coming back. Anyway, I digress. Mutib Khan, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Matib writes, we got 4 first rounders on the D-line again. LOL. Hey, go ahead. So technically we don't, because Dorrance Armstrong is going to start, and I think Dorrance Armstrong is like a 5th round pick. So technically we don't. But if you go the Dante Fowler Jr. and Cleveland Farrell route, then yes, technically, yes, we do have 4 first rounders again. But Dorrance Armstrong is starting at one of the defensive end spots. So no, we don't have 4 first rounders across the board. But I get where you're going. I see what you did there. I heard your jokes, Mateeb. All right, I heard your jokes. Anyway, you guys are hilarious. So I'm looking forward to tonight's show. Boy, they exceeded my level of activity. I was telling y'all we would be up to somewhere, and I told you that number maybe needed to be pushed up to 10 to 12. We might have exceeded 12 signings already, with the Tyler Ott signing and the Jeremy Chin and the Marcus Mariota. We were already up to 7 or 8. And then you added Fowler Jr., you added Cleveland Farrell, you added Mariota, you added Jeremy Chin and Tyler Ott. That's 5 more guys in addition to the 7 or 8 we had yesterday. And then that's in addition to Zach Ertz. What? These boys are killing it right now. But again, it reminds me, and I can't help but think about the Texans 2 years ago. This is what the Texans look like. This is how I knew what it was going to look like. I studied the Houston Texans rebuild. A couple of years ago, I remember going through the free agent list, and the Texans had signed like 18 dudes. The next closest team had signed like 7. The Texans were turning that bitch over because Nick Caserio came in and he was turning that shit upside down, like dumping all of the loose Texans out. Like, all right, let me get y'all out of here. Any other loose Texans, y'all, come on out. Shook the whole roster up, tapped the bottom of the box to make sure there weren't no crumbs left in there. Every Texan that fell out, he swiped that bitch into the trash. And he looked in the box, and it was like 5 or 6 Texans still in there. He's like, all right, y'all good. And then he just started throwing dudes in the box, throwing dudes in the box, throwing dudes in the box. 1 year deal, 1 year deal, 2 year deal, 3 year deal, 3 year deal, 2 year deal, 1 year deal. And I watched that happen 2 years in a row until they finally got the roster to where they got it right now. And they made some shrewd moves in the draft, which is what Washington has done, which is why we got all this draft capital. But they had 2 first rounders and all that kind of stuff. And they made all these good decisions, and look where they are now, right? But the most important part was they got the quarterback right. So all of this is nice, and we can be really excited about all of this stuff. But I'm going to repeat, we got to get the quarterback right if we want all of this stuff to not be in vain. So that's what's going to be the most important thing. And we won't know until the games actually start. But there's nothing wrong. I'm going to be excited regardless. I love what's being done right now. But some of you guys are excited, which is where I am. Some of you are surprised. I am not. I predicted a lot of this. The activity, it's probably a little bit more than I thought. But I knew they were going to be aggressive, which is why I did the video the day before. Same thing I did with Dan Quinn when we hired him. I did the video the day before because I'm like, I'm trying to brace y'all. Dan Quinn's about to get this job. I just need you to get your mind right. I did the same thing with free agency. I just wanted to get your mind right. I wanted y'all to be prepared mentally. The shit's going to be like NASCAR. Zoom, zoom. It's going to be fast and the furious. We're going to be out here making moves. And not because you want to, out of necessity. We have to. So anyway, just wanted to make that abundantly clear. We're going to talk more about that later on tonight, though. Red Wings 01, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, I'm a little surprised, just not used to this level of competence. I've been trying to get you guys to rewire your brain to it, and it's tough. Not everybody works at the same pace as I do in that regard. It takes time. And I still have my PTSD for certain things, but I told you that it was going to be different. And, I get beat up a lot for this. because I say it feels different, but I said, not only does it feel different, it is actually different this time. And the most tangible piece of evidence that I have of that is ownership. Never have we had new ownership before. Never have we had this kind of setup in the front office, not under Dan Snyder at least. We've got something that we haven't had for over a quarter of a century, and that's organizational stability. That shit is priceless. You can't duplicate it. You can't fabricate it. Either you have it or you don't. And now we do. So guess what? This is how business is going to be conducted in Washington moving forward. You think Adam Peters was some made up imaginary figure? Some guy that people just thought highly of because he looks good in a suit? No, this man has been with championship organizations. He's won Super Bowls with the Patriots and the Broncos, and he's gone to the Super Bowl twice as a member of the San Francisco 49ers front office. All this guy knows is winning. He knows what it looks like and how you achieve it. This isn't happening on accident. The reason why I said the biggest hire in franchise history outside of Joe Gibbs, and if we're just keeping it in the last 30 years, the biggest hire that this organization has made in the last 30 years was Adam Peters. I said this is the second biggest offseason in franchise history. Why did I say that? Obviously, last year was the biggest because we got rid of Dan Snyder. Nothing trumps that. But I said this is the second biggest offseason because if you get Adam Peters right, you get the GM spot right, you're set. He's going to figure it out. Even if he swings and misses with this quarterback, he'll figure it out. He'll figure it out. So what I'm telling you is get used to this level of competence. Expect it. Don't let it surprise you. Expect this level of competence. This is the new norm. Coach T. Brown, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Coach T writes, hey, Lou, what's up, coach? We have 29 spots to fill. Not surprised. You shouldn't be. I told y'all when free agency is getting underway, I said we got a lot of roster spots available. We had 20. I think I told y'all we had 21 free agents going into the free agency period, and we haven't re-signed not a single one. And then they messed around and cut 3 or 4 dudes, right? They cut Nick Gates. They cut Charles Leno Jr. They cut Logan Thomas. So we were already going into the process with 21 dudes being free agents. And then we added another 4 or 5 to the list. Yeah, there was work to be done. There was work to be done. And they're not finished. They're not finished. So not surprised at all. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this installment of the Louie T Network podcast. Day 2 of the tampering period. Tomorrow is the start of the new league year. We'll be back again live for the start of the new league year tomorrow, where all of this becomes official. And there will be more moves to talk about. I told you this week was going to be spicy. Yeah. And it has been to this point. We still haven't seen the cornerback or really the tackle market really pierced yet. Safety market is still out there. We've seen some guys get some deals, right? But that safety market's still taking shape. I think the safety market is spoken, though. I think the league is spoken on the safety market already. And now these safeties have to make a decision on what they want to do. You want to take this 1-year deal and then hit the market again next year and try your luck? Or are you willing to take this $7 or $8 million that we offering you per year? Like, it's your choice. You know what it is. If you Cam Curl, there's a 3-year, $21 million deal waiting for you somewhere if you want it. Or do you want this 1-year, $6 million deal where you prove it and then you try to get 9 or 10 next year in free agency after having a stellar year? Your choice. Your choice. But this is what it is. Take it or leave it. We'll see what happens. Anyway, I digress. You guys get out of here. I'll see you later on tonight if you're a Commanders fan. If not, I'll see you here tomorrow when we get to the brass tacks of the NFL season starting tomorrow. We will celebrate Happy New Year tomorrow. Until then, you guys have a good one. Take care. God bless. Good night. Oops.